So I'm Tony Chapman, a serial entrepreneur, and for the last 30 years I've been involved primarily in communications. Today, where you are today is Capital C, which is a world-renowned advertising agency. So I think that the best way to, if you're in the business of creating content, is to understand the passion points of the individuals. And instead of being the old marketing days, oh my God, there's people gathered around a fire, I'm gonna drop kerosene on and light it and go, look at me. I think the real intelligent marketing in the future that understand what content's about is to provide a log to an individual and they can put it on the fire. And in doing so, your brand is presented in a way that's about what it did for me versus just simply what does the brand do. You can push your way into my life, but to me, if you to be a true media company, you got to create something so magnetic that the consumer pulls me into their life. And the difference between push and pull is really the difference between brands that have it and brands that'll never have it. In my 30 years of marketing, there's two words that I think have become the most important. One is engagement, which is the oxygen of marketing. The only way I can hope to bring you into my story is to first engage you. And then the second is persuasion, which is really the lifeblood of business. I engage you, and hopefully I persuade you to change your behavior, buy my product, try my product. In the early days of television, the concept of branded content existed. It was the Procter & Gamble soap opera. The talk show host smoked a certain package of cigarettes that the cigarette company sponsored. And it was just woven into the whole storyline. Whether you liked it or not, you had no choice. There was 3 channels, you were captive. There was no remote control. There was no ability to bring in content on your mobile phone or your device. And then television sort of exploded in terms of profitability because it had such an incredible reach and frequency, and it was so engaging. And so they kind of pushed the brands outside the storyline and put them within this sort of island called the advertising commercials. And again, because you're captive, you had no choice but to have your content interrupted and watch it. Well, that's changed, and it's gone back to the old days. And nowadays, people are skipping through the ads because they don't want their storyline interrupted. They're watching things in binges. They're downloading things. So if a brand wants to use television or video content as a Trojan horse to engage you, they now have to weave themselves within the storyline. So what branded content really is something that's been around since the beginning of the media, but now it's come back full swing because that island called advertising and commercials is no longer valuable real estate for a marketer. Like any creative medium, branded content, there's some extraordinary examples and there's some awful examples. The extraordinary is when the brand becomes part of the consumer's journey. Where they are today, where they want to go, the happy ever ending, and show how we can help you get there. Recipe to Riches is a great example. Food show, Loblaws, across Canada, looking at home chefs that love to cook, maybe didn't like their real job, but love to cook. They compete, they go through this incredible gauntlet, the winner stands, it's Glow's lemon pie, she wins that night, and it's available next day in Loblaw. And what does Loblaw get? Shoppers they hadn't seen before, they get traffic, they get basket, they get sales, they become a hero to the Canadians for what they've done. Beautiful example of branded content. Bad branded content is when you're jammed into the story, you don't belong there. It's a character that doesn't belong. It suddenly shows up. It's like we're having coffee at a coffee shop and all of a sudden this toothpaste wanders in. And you go, what is it doing there? It's not part of the story. It's not helping us in our journey. It's not playing a role. And that to me is a great example of bad branded content. Yeah, the dynamics between the client and the agency is changing dramatically. The relationship between the client and the agency is becoming very strained because the client doesn't have any more money. In fact, very often less money to spend. There's a very good chance their head office is being compressed. They have less people to think about things. So they're working very tactically, almost like triage doctors. Procurement has come in and started saying, how much does that cost? So for years, advertising really was immune from it. Procurement was about rationalizing factories and getting a better deal on the resin that you use to make your plastic products with. It really didn't even get involved in the service industry. So now they've showed up and they're starting to really demand, what is the return on investment? Return on investment in marketing is doing 2 things. Creating some accountability. Is that the right investment? But it's also starving experimentation because people are afraid to take a risk. So they tend to get a flight to safety. It used to be a fairly simple ecosystem. It was about who shouts loudest wins. So if I could shout loud on television, produce an ad, buy a lot of media, and make sure I had the right distribution, I invariably got share of mind and share of wallet. It's becoming an incredibly difficult thing to navigate because remember, we want engagement and we want to persuade. So content marketing is dramatically changing the interface between the agency and the client. It really is about who has influence, who has authority, where do I invest my money, and who has time to really think and experiment about placing chips in so many different ways to try to find, again, the holy grail of engagement and, more importantly, persuasion.